So where we're at, we're going to pick up where we left off last week, and we left off on page 16.
Okay.
And I just wanted to review one of the most important points of the whole night,
Okay.
and then we'll move on.
Excellent.
And here we were on page, in my book, it was page 16
Okay.
of the Manual for Teachers.
Mm-hmm.
The last paragraph, paragraph 3, line 6,
Mm-hmm.
it says, "It is the function of God's teachers to bring true learning to the world.
Mm-hmm.
Properly speaking, it is unlearning that they bring. For that is true learning in the world."
Well, that's a real play on words.
It's a play on words, but the point is this. The Course in Miracles would tell you that the world as it is perceived by humankind
Okay.
is unreal,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
It's fear-based. False evidence appearing real, i.e., a dream. Okay, sound familiar? Remember the Bible?
Yep.
Man's asleep. It's in a dream. Okay. So the Course would say, this is a learned experience. We are we're perceptual beings. We're educated. We're educated to buy into the dream, and now call that the real world. Okay. So the Course is basically saying, before you're going to experience ultimate reality, you have to unlearn what you have learned and what you have adopted as your belief system. Obviously. If this were true, then you don't have anything to unlearn, except what is. But if it's false, you have to unlearn and release your attachment to erroneous perceptions. Buddha said,
Mm-hmm.
detach yourself from all of the outward world. Jesus said, forsake everything and everyone, i.e., unlearn what you think you know. The Bible says, when you accept and you become in tune with, I'm going to paraphrase, when you become in tune with ultimate reality, you become a fool to the world.
Yeah.
A fool.
Yeah.
Why? Because they haven't unlearned yet.
Yeah.
They have embraced erroneous beliefs and called that the real world. We're all in agreement. We're all in agreement. Excuse me, I almost swallowed some gum here. We're all in agreement.
It was perfect.
That was perfect timing. Yeah. I was choking on that one. Okay, so anyway, I wanted to touch on that one sentence before we moved on because huge, huge. Now we're going to move to where Mickey thought we were going to go, which is on page...
26.
It's on page what, 26?
26.
Yeah,
26. We're only going to read the one line, then we're going to come back. Okay, page 26. Change is required in the life situation of God's teachers. Now, I thought this would be very, very appropriate because here we're talking about unlearning. Okay? So now what's required to become in that state where you're unlearning? Let's just do maybe a couple of sentences here and then we'll move back to where we really are. Changes are required in the minds. Notice how the minds are italicized. Changes are required in the minds of God's teachers. This may or may not involve changes in the external situation. Now, in my particular instance, my case, I went through a divorce, a bankruptcy, and a business breakup. I went from living in my home to living in my car. Changes obviously were involved in my transition. Okay, that was me. Was it necessary? For me, yes. For someone else, no. It may or may not be necessary. And it's not for you to figure out what is necessary. Rest assured, the universe will help you in that regard. My now ex-wife came to me, which at that moment I thought I was going to be married for life. In my mind, I'm married for life. She comes to me, I don't love you anymore. I love Robert, which was my partner. Oh, well, isn't this interesting? Life is going to have a change coming now. Okay? I didn't initiate that. It came to me. I went along with it. Oh, okay. I guess we're going to have a parting of the ways now. So, I still love her in terms of agape love. I hold no animosity, no anger, no nothing. It is what it is. We go our separate ways. We had a moment. We're still going to have loving relationship, but not the same intimate relationship that we shared in that moment. The universe saw fit that we go like this. Fine. Okay, there it is. Now, I have another relationship. What will tomorrow bring? God only knows. Not my place to know. My place is to be. Okay, so anyway, remember that no one is where he is by accident, and chance plays no part in God's plan. There are no accidents in creation. Thank God we have a Holy Spirit that can orchestrate the interplay of creation and bring about a perfected moment. What I needed was provided. What you need is provided. Okay. That being said, when I was calling for nothing but understanding so I could see ultimate reality, so I could share it because God asked me to write about it and teach it. Fine. That's all I asked for. What then is my future going to look like? Who's going to be involved? Where am I going? All those details have to become irrelevant, or else my ego mind is calling the shots and I'm not available. Okay? Mm-hmm. That was my life. Okay? So anyway, what's required? Changes are required in the mind. That's what's required. Changing the mind. The details are irrelevant. Does that make sense? Now we can go back.
So just like in that movie, The Peaceful Warrior there, where
Okay.
the guy says, we want you to empty your mind. Because that's what you're just talking about right there.
Same
all the
thing.
learning.
Same thing. You remember in the Matrix? Morpheus and Neo are sparring, and Morpheus looks at Neo. Neo looks at Morpheus, and he says, I see what you're trying to do to me. And Morpheus looked back and he said, I'm trying to free your mind. That's all. Free the mind. Let go of your perceived reality. What's left? Reality. I heard a definition of reality the other day. I thought, oh, this is very good. Very, very, very good. Definition is this. Reality is that which is left over when you take away your beliefs. That's what reality is.
We watched a movie on the Doors, and I wish I could remember. It was a good line.
Yeah.
But it has to do with how they came up with their title. Do you know that one, Chris? The doors of perception will open when...
No. Not the doors of precise yield.
Probably the doors of reality will open up when you let go of your perceptions.
It's something like that.
It's that's what it basically
It was really
means.
good, whatever
Sure.
it was.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, that would make sense
I'll
that
write
way.
it down. I'll get it.
You get it.
I'll write it down.
So anyway, that being said, I just wanted to lay that down for us before we jump into where we are. Okay? Because now we're going to get into how is healing accomplished. That's where we left off, but I think now we're probably all in sync and we can move forward. So you want to pick up?
Sure. How is healing accomplished? Healing involves an understanding of what the illusion of sickness is for. Healing is impossible without this. The perceived purpose of sickness. Healing is accomplished the instant the sufferer no longer sees any value in pain. Who would choose suffering unless he thought it brought him something, and something of value to him? He must think it is a small price to pay for something of greater worth. For sickness is an election, a decision. It is the choice of weakness, and the mistaken conviction that it is strength. When this occurs, real strength is seen as threat and health as danger. Sickness is a method conceived in madness for placing God's Son on his Father's throne. God is seen as outside, fierce and powerful, eager to keep all power for himself. Only by his death can he be conquered by his Son. And what In this insane conviction does healing stand for. It symbolizes the defeat of God's Son and the triumph of the Father over him. It represents the ultimate defiance in a direct form which the Son of God is forced to recognize. It stands for all that he would hide from himself to protect his life. If he is healed, he is responsible for his thoughts. And if he is responsible for his thoughts, he will be killed to prove to him how weak and pitiful he is. But if he chooses death himself, his weakness is his strength. Now has he given himself what God would give to him, and thus entirely usurp the throne of his Creator.
Wow.
Usurp.
Usurp.
Yeah.
So the he. See, we've got an ego personality at play here.
Mm-hmm.
And you ever see these people, you know, the martyrs, woe is me, and they play this victim role, and they're doing this is ego talking.
Mm-hmm.
And the ego loves this drama, and it wants to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, this is not love. What is it? It's false evidence appearing real. The victim, the martyr, wanting to keep this alive. The opposite of that,
It's also fear of real living.
it's fear of real living.
Fear of real living, because then it's easier to not live, and then you can hate the universe, or hate God, or hate your parents, or whoever's responsible, for the fact that you didn't really live. But somehow that's, in a sense, easier.
Well, it's easier for the ego.
Yeah.
It's easier for the ego because the ego, first of all, let me say this. The ego, which is believing in perceptions and is playing this role, the ego is not real in the truest sense of the word. When you wake up, you find out that the dramas and all of this stuff really has no place in ultimate reality. This is where, remember we talked a long time ago about in meditation, you're watching the thoughts go by. And I remember when I first started meditating and I was feeling a bit out of sorts. I couldn't quiet the mind, and the thoughts are coming, and I'm getting pissed. I was getting angry at the fact that, wait a minute, I spoke to God, I understand certain things, and now I can't even get beyond my own thoughts. But when I stopped fighting the thoughts and witnessed the thoughts, I started to separate myself from the thoughts. And then I realized, wait a minute, where are these thoughts coming from? And what are they? What are they is the ego has a collection of beliefs. Collection of beliefs. That's what the ego is. Collection of beliefs. But now these beliefs are coming at me. And as I'm going further and further and watching them, something came to me, a realization, obviously, that's not who I am. I'm separate from that. I'm separate from the collection of beliefs. I am. The I am of my soul. Obviously, otherwise, I wouldn't be able to be the observer. How could I be the observer of something if I am that? There's a separation here, isn't it? Just the fact that you are the observer of it, you recognize that you're not that. When you recognize you're not that, and you are the observer, and you focus on being the observer, you are empowering that state or level of awareness over being consumed by the ego. when you disengage the ego, or rather not engage it, just let it be, it becomes powerless. It has no control over you.
Can I use an example?
Yeah,
I
please.
have a good friend who takes care of his mother. And he's the most miserable, my good friend is the most miserable human being you'll ever meet.
Okay.
I love him to death, I've known him forever. And the thing is, he's like, well, I can't leave, I hate Fort Myers. Can't leave because nobody will be here to take care of my mother.
Right.
I'm like, well, you can leave. You know, you got brothers and sisters. No, one doesn't have a car. One lives too far away. Da, da, da. They're excuses.
Sure. Addicted to the drama. Right.
I said, what's the worst that happens if you leave? Mom dies. Then
Okay.
maybe it was Mom's time to die.
Right.
And of course, about then I was being told how cold I was.
Sure. Okay. All right.
But if I'm understanding correctly, if you're that miserable in that situation, you need to change.
Obviously. But that individual cannot change until they are ready to initiate the change.
And it depends on what your definition of change is. I mean, if you're changing for spirituality, that's something.
Well,
But,
yeah.
I mean, but if you're just changing to change up your routine, that is, you'll just go on to something else with the ego, playing master hand.
I think we're going to get more clear as we go on here, because this is exactly what we're into.
Well, can we go back up
Please.
to that first paragraph?
Go ahead.
I didn't quite get this. Sickness is a method conceived in madness. Now that I can understand. But then for placing God's Son on His Father's throne, I'm a little. What?
Right. Well, sickness is a method conceived in madness.
For placing God's Son on His Father's throne, I'm a little thrown off.
God is seen as outside, fierce, powerful, eager to keep all power for Himself.
Is that the world view?
That's the world's view. That's the world's view. Only by His death can He be conquered by His Son. This is ego's take. That's what this is. This is ego's take. And talking about the challenge of the ego, God's Son, against God.
Oh, I see.
So we're talking about ego's take. Then we're going to get into the shift in perception down below. The next paragraph the next section here is going to talk about the shift in perception, rather than going from the ego's viewpoint, from that to the spiritual. And I think we're gonna jump right in. Chris, you want to pick up on that one?
Sure.
The shift of perception.
Sure.
The shift in perception.
The shift in perception. Healing must occur in exact proportion to which the valuelessness of sickness is recognized. One need but say, there is no gain at all to me in this, and he is healed. But to say this, one must first recognize certain facts. First, it is obvious that decisions are of the mind, not of the body. If sickness is but a faulty problem-solving approach, it is a decision. And if it is a decision, it is the mind and not the body that makes it. The resistance to recognizing this is enormous, because the existence of the world as you perceive it depends on the body being the decision maker. Terms like instincts, reflexes, and the like represent attempts to endow the body with non-mental motivators. Actually, such terms merely state or describe the problem. They do not answer it.
So again, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Are we talking about, does the body have a consciousness of its own? Or is the body reflective of the consciousness that you're holding?
I think this paragraph is saying is that the mind is,
The mind is in charge.
in a sense, is all powerful in these matters.
Exactly. And this is what this is all trying to help people understand, is your mind is key here. In your mind, we're talking about beliefs. Remember the Bible, as you believe, so shall it be. Your outward, I just recently ran across something that somebody sent to me, and it had to do with the holographic universe. And years ago, somebody introduced me to this book that they were reading. I didn't read the book, but it talked about the holographic universe. And I never read the book, but I would say this. I would probably feel very aligned with what the holographic universe talks about. That the world is going to reflect back to you where your mind is at that moment and what you're projecting out. What you're projecting out is going to come back to you in terms of something that you'll experience, which will validate whatever you believe in. Which is what the Bible meant when it said God will give them strong delusions to believe even their own lies. Remember we read that? Same kind of concept here. What you're holding on to in terms of your thinking is going to be interwoven in the fabric of experience. Not just you alone, because you are collectively part of this worldly experience. So you and everyone else here are putting energies out there, and then it's being manufactured into an experience that we get to witness. See how this works? Our thoughts are key to all of this. Your thoughts and your beliefs. That's why the Bible says, as you think, so shall it be. As you think, so shall it be. Beliefs are very, 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 very important. And Einstein, when he said you cannot correct a problem with the same mindset that created the problem, you have to get to your own thoughts before you can initiate change. This is why that individual that you're talking about, until they are ready to really assess their own thinking, no one and nothing in creation can move them from believing in what they believe in. Right? We can assist by demonstrating what we believe. Right?
Now, might be a little bit of a digression, but on Peggy, the person you're talking to, isn't it possible that he knows that he's miserable? And in the abstract sense, he knows that he should leave. Like, yeah, he should leave. It's obvious. Okay. Isn't it possible that someone in that situation, though, cannot bring themselves to actually have that conversation with their mother? They fear so much that the moment or that confrontation where you have to look your mother in the eye and say, I'm leaving. And you know it's either going to be tears or yelling, or she's going to faint, or she's going to, and that, so in other words, I can understand that I have to do something, but it could be just that moment is to him so awful, so he doesn't think that he can, I can understand. I'm a little that way. So, I mean, maybe that's something that can stop people. Something that you have to do, but you know that the doing it is going to be a horrible situation, and you're not sure that you can, you're just not sure you can do that.
Unless you're prompted to do it, you're not going to do it. And when you're motivated, when you are, and now here's the thing too. When you look at the outward world, yes, you can be conscious of the fact that other people are struggling with their stuff, and that's, it's nice that you feel compassion enough to want to help them, but the only way you can truly help someone is for you to live your truth to the fullest you can live it, and let them be where they're at. That may sound cold and heartless and whatever. You let them be exactly where they're at, unless they're asking you for help. And you are actually being helpful by staying centered in the vibration of love.
Well, in those situations, though, if a parent asks you for help, You
Well-
either be true to yourself or you say,
Right,
Or-
that's a hard
or-
situation.
or, you
Let's
know,
say the mom falls on her knees and begs. I mean, I'm just, let's say, you don't know exactly, but let's say your mom falls on her knees and begs you with tears in her eyes to stay. I mean, I'm not saying it can't be done, but that's pretty
Well,
hard
it's
thing
heart-wrenching.
to
It's
say,
heart-wrenching.
Mom, here,
Yeah.
excuse me, Mom, can you get your hands off of me,
Well, let me say this.
This is a
because
hard thing.
I gotta say, I had a similar experience with my son after my divorce, and my son was crying, and Dad, don't leave, and blah, blah, blah. And in that moment, the human ego mind is feeling the pain. And the spirit is looking, saying, well, wait a minute. I love this spirit in front of me more than I love the relationship of father-son. Which one do I choose to serve? It was a no-brainer for me. I choose to serve his spirit. The human ego mind, in his mind, I abandoned him. In his mind, he felt hurt. He felt pain. I remember one
He
time
thought
I
you were a
channeled-
bad guy.
I'm a bad guy.
And nobody wants to feel like they're a bad guy.
And so the ego wants to go ahead
everyone
and
wants to
stroke
feel like
him.
they're a good guy.
Oh, absolutely.
So he might have won you over. Oh my God!
Had I
don't want
not-
anyone to think I'm a bad guy.
Had I not seen the spirit first, he would have.
Yeah.
I got to say this. I channeled Source one time around that period, and I got a message, and this was the message that came through, talking about not just my son but humanity. The message was this: love them enough to allow them to hate you.
Wow.
And I said, okay, I got it.
Wow.
Well, wait a minute.
You didn't put that in your book.
I didn't put that in my book. No, I didn't.
He would look for it.
I would remember that line.
Well, another spin on that situation, though. You know, this guy, whoever it may be, has convinced himself that, hey, if I leave, my mom's going to pass away.
Sure.
So, if he hasn't turned on to the spiritual view, and he still decides to leave, once she passes away, he says, see, I validated what I believe.
Oh, absolutely.
That she was going to die if I left.
Right.
Now he's living in compounded hell because he thinks that
He wasn't ready for that.
to her death.
And this is why, remember Jesus speaking in parables, and they said, why do you speak in parables? And he said, for you it's meant that you understand the mysteries of the kingdom, but for them it's not. When you are ready, you will hear what is appropriate for you at your level of understanding. For the person walking through the door, I could say many things that would turn off almost every single person walking through the door, because they're not ready to hear that at that moment. Not that it's not true, but it's not something for them at that moment. Which is what Peggy was alluding to at the very, very beginning here, when I was saying that I am constantly reiterating to be present means to go beyond the steps. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to tell you if you have to embrace a step, embrace it. But that doesn't change the reality that I'm here to teach. The reality is, if you're trying to be, you're not being. If you're on your way, you're not there. That's the reality of what is. I'm constantly reminding everyone about that. But that doesn't mean that at this moment everyone's going to get it, nor should they get it. The universe will provide you with exactly what you need. Trust that. I know it's a given. You can. This is why we just read at the beginning here. There are no accidents in creation. There's nothing but perfection. There's nothing but perfection, and you're getting exactly what you need. You need for this given moment, relative to
I thought we were
your
getting
beliefs.
what we deserve.
Well, wait a minute. See, I really, really don't like the word deserve.
Oh, okay, yeah, maybe, yeah.
And the reason I don't like deserve
Fine.
is because we're here to lose the belief in reward and punishment.
but karma does fall in.
Karma falls in relative to the system. Karma falls in relative to the system.
We can free
I'm here to
ourselves.
teach you to wake up
Right.
and go beyond the dream
Yeah.
Wake up beyond the dream. Karma belongs in the dream.
Right.
If you go beyond the dream,
Right.
obviously the rules are different.
Right.
And reward and punishment is nothing that has no meaning in the mind of God. Your Creator is not going to reward you or punish you, but your Creator will love you forever. That will never ever change. If we had a judgmental God, you could get rewarded, you could get punished. God help us if we had that.
If we had.
No, but we don't have that. So, to me, one of the fundamental things that you have to let go of is the concept of reward and punishment. It has no place in the state of being. With agape love. And if you're going to share agape love in this world, then you got to go beyond judgment. You got to go beyond reward and punishment. And you don't treat this one better because they did that for you, and that one worse because they did that to you. Everything about the Course in Miracles says there are no victims here. There are no victims when you don't judge. Go into the dream, play the ego's game, and you're going to find all kinds of victims and bad guys and good guys and everything, all that stuff in the dream. It fits into this world. This is saying, you've got to unlearn all that. It's true or not true, right?
On the subject of karma, and maybe it's another way of saying the same thing. If God exists in a realm of total freedom, which I take as a given,
Okay.
well, total freedom has to be something in which the laws of karma don't apply. Because if you're talking about laws of karma, that's not freedom anymore, that's causation, that's cause and effect, and A leads to B, and now B is sort of, it's not free, it's determined. Okay, so there is a realm of cause and effect,
Right. Okay.
but God exists, and we aspire to exist. When we are at one with God, then we also exist in a realm of freedom, and the realm of freedom is beyond karma.
Absolutely it is. And this is where innocence has to come into play. And this is what the Course in Miracles is all about. You, at some point, if you're going to embrace this, and it says you're gonna accept this totally or not at all. Totally meaning everything and everyone in creation is totally innocent. Now, you can only accept that. There's one way you are going to be able to accept this, and only one way. When you recognize that the world here is a dream and it's not real. When you recognize it's not real, now, what is anyone guilty of? They're not guilty. Now, how can you save them? Of course, Miracle says you're their savior. How do you save anyone? By saying, hey, wake up! Stop that! Leave that situation! No, that's not how you save them.
No, the only way to save them is
There you go.
to lift them up into that realm of freedom.
It's by them observing you.
By them observing you, by you living it, that's it. You're their savior now.
Leadership by example.
They get it? Fine. They don't get it? You gave them the example that they may pick up on 10 years from now. I met this guy 10 years ago. Oh, this woman was living in a state that I couldn't understand at that moment, but now it's starting to make sense. When you're the living example, you are the Christ.
That's when your friend can leave his mom.
Absolutely.
But before that, he can't,
no.
because even if he does leave her, he'll feel so like Mickey was saying, he'll feel so racked with guilt that he's going to say, "Man, I do wish that I had, not done that." You better get yourself into that realm of freedom first, where the laws of karma are, where
Where you're exempt.
Where you're exempt.
You're
where
exempt.
You're
You're outside of the
above
system.
them. You better get to that state before you do something like that. You got to get to that state. In other words,
That's why you can't leave.
that's right. Well, yeah.
That's why.
Remember the Bible? Not that I'm not one of these Bible people, but there's a lot of truth in the Bible. And the Bible says this: by the law, I am free of the law. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is these are very, very profound statements that are here. And now we're hitting on these points where we can look at this and understand it. By the law, I am free of the law. What was that talking about? Exactly what we're talking about. Exactly the point Chris was making right here. When you are in that state of being, you are exempt from cause and effect. How could you possibly be responsible for anything in the future when I'm awake in this moment? Cause and effect have nothing to do with me at this moment if I am awake. I am outside of the dream. I'm alive.
And you're free.
And I'm free. Remember the Bible saying, you shall learn the truth and the truth shall set you free? Here's the freedom it was talking about. Truth is in there.
And today, when you were talking about reward and punishment, I had a co-worker talking to me about him and his family were going up to Disney because the one daughter got almost 100 average and the other one's got like a 94 point average. So he said, you know, they kind of expect that reward if they do the work. So
what is he doing? Reinforcing that belief and that gets solidified, and then they teach their children and so on, and we keep that ego's perception alive and well. And so this world continues so that we have opportunities to experience over and over and over. And just as this says, acceptance of sickness as a decision of the acceptance of sickness as a decision of the mind for purpose for which it would use the body is the basis of healing.
Oh, you're in the next paragraph?
Yeah,
I guess, I don't know.
We weren't even there yet. Where'd that come from?
Where'd that come from? I don't know, I just jumped ahead. I just happened to see that there. But anyway, everything has to do with a decision. That's what this is about. You make decisions, and then you experience your state of being relative to what you're focused on. All of us. As you believe, so shall it be. It's a decision. You want to be sick? You want to buy into that judgment? That's a decision you made. How long do you maintain that? As long as you choose to.
So when they're talking sick, are they talking real illness like cancer?
No, they're basically talking. The course is basically talking about an erroneous view.
Okay.
Now, that being said, if you let that fester and you build on it, and most likely you will manifest some form of physical illness to accompany the thought. If it's just a passing, fleeting thought, yeah, you may get a sneeze. But well, I'll give you a good example. I was having a conversation with my mother this weekend, and my mother told me that her mother was constantly telling everyone, the kid, her children, which would be my mother and her sister and brother and the grandkids and anyone, watch out for cars. Watch out for cars. Watch out when you're crossing the street. Watch out for cars. You know what happened to my grandmother?
Got hit by a car?
She got hit by a car and got killed. Walking down the street, you know, not a busy road like 41. A neighborhood, you know, relatively quiet road. Just happened that this car and a motorcycle were having a race. Drunk driver hit her and killed her. She was walking down the road, walking on the side of the road. And all she kept talking about, warning everybody, watch out for cars, watch out for cars, watch out for cars. Boom. Thought is a very, very powerful manifester. Remember the Bible, be careful what you ask for and be careful what you're afraid of, because if you stress enough, you put enough energy into your fears, rest assured you're feeding that manifestation, and there's a good chance you're going to experience it. Like if you're afraid of loss, you're so worried about this stuff, and you focus on it and focus on it and focus on it, you're feeding that energy to create the experience. Don't be surprised if you get that loss, because because you create them. Anyway, just a thought.
All right, next paragraph.
Number 2. The acceptance of sickness as a decision of the mind for a purpose for which it would use the body is the basis of healing. Yeah, I mean, get rid of that. The acceptance of sickness as a decision of the mind for a purpose for which it would use the body is the basis of healing. And is so, and this is so for healing in all forms. A patient decides that this is so, and he recovers. If he decides against recovery, he will not be healed. Who is the physician? Only the mind of the patient himself. The outcome is what he decides it is. Special agents seem to be ministering to him, yet they but give form to his own choice. He chooses them in order to bring tangible form to his desires. And it is this they do, and nothing else. They are not actually needed at all. The patient could merely rise up without their aid and say, I have no use for this. There is no form of sickness that would not be cured at once. So that's an answer to your question, Peggy. There is pretty all-inclusive to say there is no form of sickness.
So that would mean psychological illnesses, emotional illnesses, and it seems like physical illnesses.
Science of the Mind, there was a book somebody gave me years ago from the Science of Mind. It's a big, thick book, and it talked about healing. Basically talked about the exact same thing. And it basically was saying that healing, true healing, just has to, you have the vision of being healed. End of story, done deal. Then it questioned, does this healing need to be repeated? And obviously the answer is no. If in fact you've accepted that it's a done deal, then it should never be looked at again. If you go back and rethink, should it be done again, obviously you haven't accepted it and you're still as bad off as you were before you had the thought. Right? Remember this. Here's one of the most important elements for us all to remember is now. Always is. Now always is. In this now moment, if I see myself as being healed and awake and free of everything that would be viewed as an obstacle in any way, if I see myself as being beyond all of that, what do I need to do? What do I need to accomplish?
Nothing.
Nothing. You're absolutely right. Perfection that when Jesus said, now, the one who says, I followed the commandments, I've been good my whole life, what's left? And what did Jesus say to him? Go off now and be perfect. Wow. In this now moment, I can be perfect in this now moment, can't I? If I'm free of all my thoughts and beliefs about becoming and recognize I'm already there. I don't have to become perfect. God created me perfect. Didn't He? Didn't God create you perfect? Talking about the spirit within.
Glad you clarified.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the personality. No. But anyway, yeah, now always is very, very important, because when you can recognize that, you don't have to work at being, just be. Be the change. Be it now. Be here now. Now always is. Be here now. Not sometime in the future. You don't have to work to become what you already are. When you can accept it, it's done.
And it's not so much that I say I'm perfect. I think it's more like to say God's creation is perfect, and I'm part of His creation, and this moment is perfect, and I'm in this moment. So if this moment is perfect, I'm in that, and if the creation is perfect and I'm in that, ipso facto, I'm perfect, but I'm not perfect due to any something special that I've done.
We're not talking
even
about
my
the ego.
imperfections, even my imperfections, my flaws, my mistakes, and so forth, are still then part of. So it's a different idea of what perfection is.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you without flaws.
The spirit.
Even those flaws are part of a bigger.
The spirit
picture.
has no flaw.
Yeah.
And you are spirit. Remember the Bible saying God is spirit, and if you have to worship God in spirit and in truth.
Yeah.
If you look at the statement, I am perfect, as long as it's not the ego personality speaking, Bruce can't make the statement. I can't look at you and honestly look you in the eye and say, Bruce is perfect. No, I'm far from perfect.
Well,
But I look and I say, I am perfect because I am not Bruce.
But at the same time, what Chris is saying also, though, somebody comes in here right now and shoots all of us or one of us.
Right.
Or the situation was perfect.
Certainly.
So
I'm ready.
Well, yeah, okay.
I need a little time.
So take it, sir.
Yeah. Dark Soul? I'll be skipping
Here's
this.
all the thing that you
I'll be skipping
We
it.
decided.
eeny, meeny, miny, moe. Just a second, sir.
Let's draw straws.
But nevertheless, the moment's perfect.
Always is.
Even with the judge, with what's going on, might not be viewed in this dimension as acceptable. It's perfect.
Hmm?
Therefore,
Sure.
the only word there is perfect.
There's only perfection no matter what's going on. If you remember, and you always remember that this dimension that we're in is here for us to hone our ability to be consciously cognizant of our perfected spirit. That's what we're here for. If anyone asks me, what is this world for? That's what I would say you're here for. That being said, Chris is going to require a little bit different honing, if you will, than I would, or Mickey, or you. It would be like, let's say you go into a diamond mine and we pull out all these diamonds, okay? We got a bunch of diamonds. They're all diamonds.
But they're in the rough.
But they're all in the rough, and you bring them to a diamond cutter. He's going to cut each one of them different. Because this one needs to be cut this way, and that one needs to be cut that way.
Yeah.
To remove the flaw.
To remove
That which is not the diamond.
that which is not the perfected representation of the diamond. What are we doing here? We are unlearning, right? Well, obviously, if I look at life different than you look at life, I got something else to unlearn than you do. And Chris has something he has to unlearn, which is different than Mickey. Obviously. Therefore, the universe is going to supply us with a perfected moment to handle our unlearning. It's going to be unique to each individual. That's why, why does shit keep happening to me? Doesn't happen to that person. Well, because this is what I need. That's why I say, I had to go through a bankruptcy. I had to go through a divorce. I had to do this. Does someone else? No, of course not.
But
It's not a prerequisite.
Look what those things did to you.
Well, for me, it was perfect.
Right,
For
right,
me,
right.
it was perfect.
For example, most people would look at that and be very fearful. Oh my God, my marriage. Oh my God, my business, and so forth. Right? Now look, you've been through that, and you see that. Wow, I had nothing to fear. So, in other words, it has led you to a point now where, because of going through that, you're fearless.
Fearless.
Dude, what can you?
I got hit by lightning.
You know that whatever life throws at you, you can smile at.
I got hit by lightning when I was a kid. I told you, it went through my body. I see lightning and people look and they say they're afraid of it. I look at lightning. I love it. Wow, this is to feel the energy and the power and to see the magnificence of nature. Wow, I love lightning. Now, I'm not too crazy about having it going through my body again, but I don't have a problem with it. You know, lightning, wow, I love it. And that's it. You should love life. You should love experiences. And yes, they're here to help you unlearn. Everything here. And you're right. Once you're stripped of everything, I remember making that statement at that moment when I'm looking all around me. Well, what can they take? They can't take anything from me. I'm free.
I heard on the news I think it was this morning, of a movement going on right now because so many people are losing everything, of decluttering their life. And I guess there's a website now, I forget the name of it, but essentially it's about living with less.
Living with less. Oh, sure. Absolutely. You know, this is why the statement Jesus made to that rich man, it's easier for the camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom. It's not impossible. And as I said to you, and I'll say to you many times, when money starts flowing and money's in my world, you're going to see me spend money. I have no problem with money. Money's not a problem. I'm not saying you should go after money. I'm not saying you should have a poverty consciousness. Nothing is a problem in the world until you make it a problem. And if these people have an attachment to form and they have too much stuff in their life, the universe is going to help remove that stuff. And then they'll come to that realization that for that individual at that moment, it becomes an enlightening move. Wow, I didn't need all this and that. That's not where I really find my happiness. My happiness doesn't come from the material world. My happiness comes from waking up to my spirit. When this becomes your treasure, remember Jesus talking about your treasure? Because where your treasure is, that's where you're going to find your heart. If my treasure is on my spirit, it supersedes the material world. It supersedes my relationships in this world on an ego personality basis. That's my treasure. If my treasure is stuff, then my heart, my mind, everything is more on every day. I got to put a certain amount of attention on creating this stuff, protecting this stuff, preserving it, and planning. Oh my God, planning for the future to protect all this stuff. If that's my treasure, that's what my mind's going to be. It's going to take a certain amount of attention. It has to. If my mind is on that, how can my mind be on the spirit? You can't serve two masters. I'm serving this or I'm serving that. Pick one. I'm not telling anyone what to serve. You do whatever you want to do. But I'll guarantee you one thing. You cannot see spirit when your ego is in play. Can't be done. When you're busy with your ego-based minds and your thoughts and beliefs are at the forefront, spirit, ego-based, that's all you see. And fears will start to magnify. This is why you look at our world today. The majority of people in this world are ego-based thinking human beings, and their fears are running rampant. Again, I channeled Source back a few years ago. As a matter of fact, I just looked the other day at some old notes that I had, I think were from 2002, when God said, humankind is literally scaring themselves to death. And I read that, oh, isn't that interesting? They're scaring themselves to death. Well, some truth to that statement, if you look around the world.
Mm-hmm. What do you think we could do with just a simple little scary movie? We're scaring ourselves to death. I mean, that's irrelevant for the most part, but you're still putting negative energy out there.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Intentionally getting scared.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, we do this to each other. We play on these fears.
Mm-hmm.
For me, one big key I found was this. Focus on spirit. Watch a scary movie and focus on spirit. Use the negative, use whatever you're seeing to remind you to stay centered. Focus on a spiritual movie, Peaceful Warrior. Do the exact same thing. Use whatever you're witnessing to remind you to stay centered on spirit. Watch the news. You see a war breaking out. Look at humanity. See it as a dream. Forgive them. They know not what they do. Use it to stay centered and focused on spirit. See someone that's helping some blind person across the street. Same thing. Whatever you's in your world, look at that and see the perfection of the moment, and it's here to remind you to stay focused on spirit. Doesn't matter what the world shows you. See, you're in charge of you. This is what everything this chapter is about, is you're making a decision as to how to perceive what's going on around you. If you get caught up in fear, so be it. You're going to have a fearful experience. If you get caught up in love, you're going to see it as a perfected moment. That's the only choice you really have. Your choice is how do you respond to each moment within the world. Not to fix it. Like you, that's not your job to fix this world. If you're trying to fix the world, obviously you're seeing some imperfection in the perfection, and you're in judgment, and you're going to be creating what we would call karma, because you're staying here. But there is a way home, and the way home is to be in the world but not of the world. See, there's a lot of Christian stuff out there that is rooted in very, very elevated truths. If they only understood what they had.
Be the witness and stay in non-judgment.
There you go. Be Christ-like. That's it. What more do you really need to do? Nothing. The universe will direct all of your moves. When you have to figure out what you should be doing, you're not trusting the universe any longer to maneuver. That's something else that I got in one of my channelings. God said, stop trying to make your dreams my will.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's a good one, isn't
That's a
it?
good bumper
I love
sticker.
some of this stuff. I said, wow, I like that.
Yeah, that says it.
That says it all. That's for all of humanity. That wasn't just for me, Mike.
Yeah.
Someday I'm going to maybe make available some of the stuff that I got, and it's all at that level. It's not the human judgmental
Right.
playing field here. It's that spiritual awakened state. Anyway, you want to
You got
keep
two more
going? Or?
paragraphs next.
Come on, let's crank them out.
Can I get the next one?
Sure.
What is the single requisite for the shift in perception? It is simply this: the recognition that sickness is of the mind and has nothing to do with the body. What does this recognition cost? It costs the whole world you see, for the world will never again appear to rule the mind. For with this recognition is responsibility placed where it belongs, not with the world, but on him who looks on the world and sees it as it is not. He looks on what he chooses to see, no more, no less. The world does nothing to him. He only thought it did. Nor does he do anything to the world, because he was mistaken about what it is. Herein is the release from guilt and sickness both, for they are one. Yet to accept this release, the insignificance of the body must be an acceptable idea.
So everything here has to do with beliefs. It has to do with beliefs and changing that belief. And once you recognize these truths, now you have responsibility. Years ago, I had something with the group for It's All One Truth, and I put together a little flyer, and at the very top I had free will equals responsibility. We all want to believe we have free will. God gave us free will. Okay, we do. Well, what does free will entail?
Assuming that free will, I don't know, as we're taught, is accepting everything as perfect. So you really lose responsibility, not gain responsibility.
Well, you lose the responsibility to a degree, but you have the responsibility to maintain the awareness. Huge job.
The responsibility.
That's the responsibility. You got a huge job. Now you start to understand what Christ meant when Jesus said, you must be vigilant in every moment. Is it easy to stay in non-judgment?
Mm-hmm.
Try it. We've all tried it.
Yeah, I have tried it.
You've tried it. So that's the responsibility, to stay out of judgment. Now, you're not responsible for the outward world and the details around you, but you are responsible to stay awake in non-judgment. That's the responsibility.
So you're responsible for your thoughts and choices.
That's it. That's all you're responsible for. So what is the world going to look like? Who knows? Nor are you responsible for it. What's going to happen to little Johnny? What's going to happen to this guy's mother if he maintains his connection to spirit and he lives as he's guided to live? What's going to happen to her? Who knows? But he's not responsible. The universe will move her to have the experience that is exactly perfect. Anyway, last one.
You're up, Peggy.
Okay. With this idea is pain forever gone. But with this idea goes also all confusion about creation. Does not this follow of necessity? Place cause and effect in a true sequence in one respect, and the learning will generalize and transform the world. The transfer value of one true idea has no end or limit. The final outcome of this lesson is the remembrance of God. What do guilt and sickness